Hey, Aaron, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
I'm glad to be here, Lacey. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to chat with you, but a little nervous because I have so many questions. I had a hard time really narrowing down all the things I want to ask you. So I am going to try to be good and not keep going. I might have to have you back on the show. I already know it.
That sounds good to me. Let's go for it.
Okay. Well, I want to start with how did you go from the Naval Academy and military service to being a serial entrepreneur and a chief marketing officer?
That is such a fun question. The easy, quick answer to that is I said yes to opportunities that came my way that would have been easy to say no to. That doesn't mean I say yes to everything because I've had a lot of people ask me for a lot of things and I say no a lot too. But the way to make a transition is to, you're going to be uncomfortable by its very nature when you say yes to something that's not what you're currently doing or you don't have a history in that. It's scary. And starting a brewery, starting a climbing gym that turned into a chain of climbing gyms, starting my own agencies was not an easy thing to say yes to. So that's just kind of a short answer. How did I get there? Um, when I was on my last tour of duty, I was on the Kitty Hawk, and it was 1998. And business. If you remember the dot-com bubble, the boom and the bust, it was all business all the time. And even on the ship, I was watching CNBC, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do some business stuff? And so I applied to some grad schools, and a note on going to school. School is all about changing jobs. And so, I went to business school and I said it's all about the business and really very little to do with the school. It enables you to make that transition. So I went to business school and tried a bunch of stuff. And to be honest with you, I had a hard time getting my first internship because I didn't know what a P&L was. I really wasn't very good with computers. Now this was 98, so computers in the Navy weren't really a huge thing at the time, and so it was very hard for me to kind of break in. And what ended up happening is one of my career advisors took pity on me, and he said, you keep trying to be this consultant or this business guy. Stop that. You are a project manager. That is what you have done as a leader in the Navy, and leverage that skill, lean into that. And so I did, and it just so happened that my very first job was a marketing job. So marketing in the Navy, how does that go together? Well, it was the project management that helped me to bridge that discipline, and that job led me to my next job, which led me to a whole career in marketing. And the last part of your question, which is how did that lead to entrepreneurship? Well, I had great examples in my life of folks starting and leading their own businesses, and I was encouraged, even while I had a full-time job, to go out and try something on my own. And so when the opportunity came to be a part of a climbing gym here in Colorado, I said, yeah, that sounds like fun. It sounds like something the community would need and that I would enjoy doing. And I said yes to that. And then that led me to the brewery, and it led me to eventually my own agencies. So that's
Yeah.
how I got here.
It does sound like saying yes to a lot of opportunity when it's presented. Somebody said that to me once, and I thought it was such great advice. Is like when you see a good opportunity, you have to jump on it. Like you can't just like, maybe, you got to grab it and hold on and go for it. So it sounds like that was a great evolution. I know it's probably sounds a lot easier than it actually was, like going from one to the next. But
Well, part of it is going with the flow, right? And if you're trying to swim upstream too much, you're trying to. That's not saying don't do it. Don't pursue your passion. It's not saying don't try something that's out of your skill set. But at some point, if it's too hard, you gotta really look at that and say no. That maybe I just don't have the skills for that, or the market's not there for that. So say yes, but always be willing to turn that car around at the same time.
that's a good point. When there's too many barriers, it's a sign that you're being blocked. Like this isn't the right path for you. Like you should divert and go down the other one. I've seen that in things that I have encountered building my businesses that has happened. It's like that wasn't the way I was supposed to go. And then looking back, it's very obvious now, like, oh, that was not me. That was not a good fit or for whatever it is. But I want to start before I get into all these marketing questions that I have for you. For people that aren't familiar with it, what is marketing and what is it not? Because I think a lot of times it gets converged with some other things, but what is marketing at the heart?
Oh, that your question is a tough one because my fundamental view is that business has to be holistic. And so I do tend to blur the lines between marketing and sales and operations and product and customer service. So I think marketing has to encompass all of those, to consider all of those. But at its heart, marketing is about how do you represent your business to your customers in a way that is true and authentic to you and compelling to them so that the services or products that you offer meet the needs that the customer has. And the clearer you can be about what it is that you're offering and why it benefits the customer, fundamentally that's marketing. And then everything else is just channels. It's just, I'm going to do that through email or my website or digital media or print or you name it. So that to me is marketing. It's all about communication and really getting to the heart of what you offer.
When people are starting out, what do you see that they get wrong a lot when it comes to marketing? Because I always say, and my audience is rolling their eyes right now because I say it all the time, but when you start a business, it's like having an imaginary friend. In the beginning, only you truly see it and believe it. And so you are trying to put this imaginary friend out to the world and get them to believe. And so in the beginning, you're not even sure. You don't even know you're trying to create something out of thin air. So what are the things they are doing wrong from the get-go?
Oh, boy. I'm glad you asked me this question because unfortunately I do see people getting it wrong quite a bit. And there are really kind of two aspects that are very closely related to this. One is that people see marketing all the time, right? We are in some ways victims of all the marketing that happens today. There's so many stats that say how often we are marketed or sold to during the day. And so we tend to think, well, I'm marketed to, I can market. And that's probably not a good assumption. So it's just like being a teacher, saying, well, I've been a student for 12 years in school or in college or however long you've been, but then you try to teach a class and you go, oh, okay, it's a different sort of thing. So it's not. I'm not saying this to be self-serving, but just like any discipline. Just because you know numbers doesn't mean you can be an accountant. And just because you've been marketed to doesn't mean you're a marketer. And so there's just a set of learning and experience that you're going to benefit from working with somebody who knows about marketing, whether it's a friend or a mentor or an agency or a consultant. It doesn't really matter, but that's the most important thing. Get advice from somebody who actually has done it and had that experience. And then secondly, the other thing that I see, and it just kills me when I see it, is people chasing the trends. Everyone go, oh, you got to be an AI now, and you got to make sure the bots are going to recognize your business. Well, yeah, but is that really the thing that's going to help you move your business? I'll give you an example. For the climbing gym, our number one channel is shared mail. So print marketing that goes through the mail and gets into, you open that little Valpak or what a money mailer, and in there is a Climbing Collective coupon, and that is our number one channel, and it has been for 10 years. It has something like 300 or 400% return on investment. It's fantastic. So I have fallen victim to my own my own trap here, because when I started the brewery with my brother, I said, well, man, let's go into print. Let's do this money mailer thing. And bomb, it didn't work. And so don't chase the hot trends. And just because your buddy's company who does X, doesn't mean it's going to work for you and your company. You can even be in the same business, but if you have different customers or different values or different, proposition for the customer, it may not work. So do not please chase the trends.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Which kind of, just to explain it more, what's the difference between? Actually, let me say this better. Do you need a strategy or do you just need action? Because the military community has a bias towards action. It's like, hey, we need to not just sit around and think about it all day long, an 80% solution, like we've got to move on this. So what is a strategy for your marketing versus what is a tactic?
Yeah. Well, you absolutely need a strategy, because otherwise you're just carrying around a bucket full of tactics, and you're employing those tactics in probably a pretty random way. Marketing is a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of equation. And so if you're just coming at it from a single tactic, if you walk away from this and go, I own climbing gyms, I'm going to go do print marketing, I'm going to tell you it may not work for you, because what does your website look like? What are your call to actions? How do those people use that coupon when they actually get to the gym? Do they buy it online? Do they come in ahead of time? There's so much nuance to all that you have to plan all the activities to work with each other. And to my earlier point, that includes, how does the customer service people respond when you come in with the coupon? How does your financial system track that so you can know what happened with it? So I always advise my customers, let's start with the strategy, but that does not mean that we sometimes don't do tactics. I'm working right now with a company that manufactures equipment for space, and I told them the exact same thing. Hey, you guys need a strategy, because I'm looking at all the pieces that you have, and they're not fitting together, and that may be why you're calling me. They said, well, maybe, but we've got a website that we're sure is not really what we want it to be. And I said, well, I definitely can agree with you on that. And so we're doing their website for them, and we're holding off on the strategy. And I think it's a wise decision on their part, because they haven't decided yet on their product strategy. It's not they don't have a strategy, but they're pivoting. And they want to make sure that pivot is going to be a smart pivot before I get in there and start recommending email and conference promotions and all the things that go along with that kind of a business. So 100%, you gotta look at the strategy, but that doesn't mean if there's a smart tactic to employ that you don't do that in the moment.
That what you just said there kind of leads to another question I have. So, like, pulling it out some more, what are things you need in place before you start marketing? Because there's a lot of people listening that are just starting a business, or they have started a business and now it has legs. Like it's a real boy. Like it's people can see the imaginary friend. So are there things that they need in place? Like a good website, like, they have to have customer service in place, or whatever else would they need?
Great question. And it trips a lot of people up, and it wastes a lot of time. And the number one thing that you need to start your business is your brand. Okay, now I'm going to unpack that for a little bit, because when I say brand, a lot of people associate that to logo or the look and feel of what their brochure, their website, their studio, their brick and mortar place of business. And yes, all of those things are important, but a brand is more than that. A brand is, how do we want to communicate? What should be that feeling of that, to use your analogy, how should that imaginary child, manifest itself when it does become real? Is it sharp dressed? Is it casual? Is it friendly? Is it serious and matter of fact? How do you want that brand to feel to the customer? And then once you've thought about that, and things like the mission and the vision, which sometimes people go, oh, really, roll your eyes, at that, but it's important, because you think it's easy, and then you actually go to write it down, and you go, oh shoot, how do I say this succinctly? And then you tell it to somebody, and they go, what does that mean? Well, you haven't nailed it yet, because that child needs a personality. And if that child does not have a personality, they're kind of schizophrenic. They're all over the place. And the customers get confused. The customers say, I don't understand what you guys do. I don't know that you're for me, right? The moment that you express something, and then they go to your website, and it's a totally different look and feel and a voice, they're going to go, maybe they don't really get me. Maybe this isn't the business for me. And so having that unifying vision, you don't have to spend, months and months on it, but spend a week, couple weeks on it, get that feedback, test it out, and from there, everything cascades. But to your question, like from a tactical perspective, today, I mean, it's 21st century, man. You need a website. So you got to get a website. Please do not put yourself on like a Facebook community and call that your website. You don't own that. And please follow up on that question, because like what people do in these social communities and how much they rely on them and how much they can get really in big trouble by doing that is something that we should talk about. But get yourself a website, and secondly, get yourself a Google listing, and get your friends and your first customers to write you reviews. This is absolutely the first thing you need to get started from a tactical perspective.
Well, leading what you just said, what about social media? That people use as a tactic, but I feel like that's where all the buzz is. Like, oh, you should be posting every day on social media. You should be creating little videos of you doing silly things or whatever it is. How does that apply? Because like you said, if you put all your eggs in a Facebook group, and I knew of who was it? Marie Forleo had something crazy like millions in her Facebook group, and it just became a management nightmare, and she just walked away from it. And it was like, it wasn't her website or anything like that. But then on the other side too, for social media, posting, like for example, a financial coach or a financial advisor, like me doing, I don't know, silly things on social media, they might not take me serious as a financial expert if I am doing, some TikTok challenge or something like that. And so can you talk about people about like kind of some guardrails with all of that? Just because somebody else is doing it doesn't mean you need to be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are really two things I want to point out about this. One, when you're using social media, you're borrowing someone else's customers. Right?
That is a good point.
Those people that are on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or X or you name your favorite social media, they're not your customers. Those are Facebook's customers, and they are letting you use them or reach them because they want content for their users. So when the algorithm changes, when their policies change, you could just be out of luck. For example, with the brewery, I'm constantly concerned about, well, now we're not going to promote, alcohol. Well, does my brewery promote alcohol? Yes, that's what the product that we sell, but we're promoting an experience. We're promoting a social activity. We do trivia. You don't have to buy anything. You can come in and get some French fries and play trivia. You don't have to drink beer. But Facebook tomorrow could decide we are opposed to alcohol, and we are not going to allow any alcohol-related businesses or communications on our platform. And if I've built my whole business around communicating with my customers through Facebook, I am out of luck. And that can happen to you on any channel at any time. Make no mistake. So it doesn't mean you can't use those channels. And I would recommend that in certain circumstances, they're very valuable. But to your question around strategy, how are you using them? To what end? Is that the way you get your customers? And a lot of businesses do, and we're all subject to these ads every day, right? So if you're gonna, let's say you've got an idea for puzzles, and you wanna sell puzzles. Well, Facebook might be an amazing place to do paid advertising to people who like puzzles. That could be great for you. But do you need to be posting on there? I would say, to a degree. So it really depends on your business. Whereas if you're thinking about, offering financial, advice and guidance, then you may want to be a little bit more serious about it. And it goes back to my earlier point around brand. What is your brand? What is your expression? And be true to your brand. So in my businesses, for example, Ignite Studio is my kind of local marketing agency, and we do a lot of fun stuff on there because I want the people in my local community to go, we're going to have fun working together. But on LinkedIn, we're more serious. We talk about what is the role of your website, what is the role of social media, and so even our brand voice is different in those different communities. So it's all about your brand and the fit for the community, but do not absolutely over rely on it. And there's a big difference between your kind of earned social media, which is those followers that you get, people who are interested in what you have to say, versus your paid social media. And people often confuse the two, right? One is something you are doing, and maybe you're boosting or something like that. And that's okay. But the paid stuff, they'll take your money. These social media platforms want your money. And just a word of caution, it may get me into a little trouble with Google, but Google has this service where they call you up. If you're advertising on Google and they say, hey, we're going to give you a free consultant for the next 90 days. Well, there's a tell right there. 90 days? How's this person going to partner with me for 90 days? And I've had good ones and I've had not so good ones. But why is Google paying those people to call you? So they can get more money. And we'd like to think it's a win-win. And in the best cases, it is a win-win. But they're optimizing for Google. There's a reason that they're using those people to pay. So I'm not telling you don't take those calls, but really have your skeptical listening ears on when they tell you, oh, just press this button, just do this. Be very careful about the buttons that you press in Google because it could end up costing you a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a good point. All the social media will do that, help you do paid ads. Like, oh yeah, we'll give you somebody that will help you out. But I liken that to the casinos. Yes, they give free classes because they want you to spend your money at the casino. So you do have to yes, you could learn a lot from that, but you do have to go in it with your eyes wide open, what it really is for. So
Absolutely.
In there, you're mentioning change, like the algorithm changing. How does change apply in marketing? Are you setting a marketing strategy and then a campaign and then you set it and forget it? Or is there change a lot that you have to adjust fire?
Never set it and forget it. So test and learn, test and learn, test and learn. But the key thing about test and learn is you gotta understand that that's exactly what you're doing. So I have this situation in one of my businesses where my business partner, he just wants to guarantee, he wants to give me money for marketing, and he wants results. And great, I want results too, but maybe there's something I haven't tried before. I'll give you a perfect example: grocery cart advertising. That seems like a flyer, right? Like, what? Why would a climbing gym do grocery cart advertising? Well, it was very, very specific reason. We opened a new facility in a new location, and we needed to get reach, and we wanted to reach families because families are our core constituency. And who's at the grocery store? A lot of times a mom is at the grocery store and she's got her kids. And so I said, let's be on the front of the cart so the kids, when they're wandering around, they see kids having fun at the climbing gym, going, Mom, take me to the climbing gym. And so we did that, and my business partner was like, that's not going to work. It worked. We got basically a 2.5x return on that, and we did that for a period of time, and then it stopped working. But we knew it stopped working because we were testing it. Right? We got kind of the brand awareness that we needed, and there were other things that we were able to do. And so we moved that money out of the grocery carts into other services. So test and learn, but you could lose. And believe me, I have had a lot of losers. I have tried, but you limit that period and you make sure you measure it. This is what a lot of people get wrong in marketing. They start with a tactic and it seems to work, and they're like, great, I got that off my plate, I've produced that creative, it's happening, things are happening, and then they're not measuring those results. And if you cannot measure your tests, you have to ask yourself, is it a good test? Is it really worth my effort to do that? Or should I test something else? Because there's almost unlimited ways to go out there and test things.
When we're thinking for people that are trying to bring in more money, because that's what it is. Like, you can't have a business if you're not making money. I mean, you could for a little bit, but after a while, it's going to go under. And so how can, service members, military spouses, veterans use marketing to bring in more revenue? Because that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is this thing making money.
Yeah. I'm not going to give you the answer you're probably hoping for, because marketing is, I wouldn't call it a luxury, but it is a little bit of a nice to have. And if you're going to make that investment, you got to make sure it's going to pay off. So take let's say you want to get fit, and you decide you're going to buy a fancy at-home gym. Well, you better make sure that you're actually going to use that equipment, because if you don't use it, then you bought this thing and it didn't really have a lot of value. And I see so many business owners go, I know I got to do marketing, and they dump a bunch of money into kind of whatever is the thing of the moment, or the thing that has influenced them in some other capacity, or however they come around that decision, and then they go, it didn't work, and then they just stop it. So it goes back to your earlier question around strategy. You want to have a strategy. You have to have the time to make that strategy real, and you have to have the patience to really put things into market and to test them. And if you don't have that time, which is often more precious than the money, then don't do it. If you're going to invest in marketing, it's got to be a serious activity, and you have to approach it methodically. You got to have a plan for using that at-home gym. Same thing with marketing.
Yes. Can you give some examples of like what could be messing up your marketing? Like, a lot of times people just think, okay, like you're saying, it's something that's a nice to have, but people are still going to try it anyway because they're like, this is something I should be doing. And let's say you have a website that is not user friendly, it's just utter chaos, and then you run paid ads. How could that backfire on you by not having like all these other things in place when you start to you're putting dollars into it, and they're probably very precious dollars that you need possibly to fix your website, not to be putting into marketing. So I don't know if you're getting what I'm saying, like how people can get this off. Like, they're like, oh, I should market, but it's actually, you're just flushing money down the toilet.
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So first thing is bad creative. And a lot of times people overinvest in the creative. They want to tweak the colors, and let's make it this and that, and they spend too much time on it. But there's a difference between okay creative, great creative, and just bad creative. And creative, what I mean by that is, what are the things that represent how your brand looks? Whether it's your print advertising, it's your signage, it's your menu, it's your website, it's your paid ads. Don't do bad creative. And we all have our own tastes, but there are certain best practices that really work in the market. So again, consult your local, marketing agency, call your friends, at the very least, get some people who are going to tell you the truth about your marketing, and don't do bad creative. Once you get to, it's pretty good, then you're probably okay. I definitely never, ever, I cannot think of a single case. Doesn't mean there isn't one, but I would never, ever start with just paid media. That is expensive. It relies upon that broader ecosystem, like you were saying. You got to have a website that looks halfway decent. So, and I guess the last thing I would say, your website better to be short and good, small and good, 1 page, then bad, and 57 pages. So little tip, you know, marketing is not all about AI. Now, AI is very useful, and you haven't asked me about that yet, but one of the best sites that I found at the current moment for creating a very simple reflection of your brand is something called Manus. So Manus, it was bought by Meta, and then I think they have to divest it for whatever reason, but Manus does a great job. You tell it what you want. You feed it some materials. You feed it your business plan. You feed it, maybe some creative that you've done before. And in about 10 minutes, it'll create you a beautiful website that you can just hit publish. And then there's some behind the scenes things you have to do if you want it to be on your domain and that sort of thing. But at the very least, that's going to give you a nice, simple, easy way on what your website should look like. So I'm not promoting that. I get nothing for saying that, but I've just found it's really useful for people who just need a website. Go to Manus. You're gonna have one in 10 minutes. It's gonna look pretty good.
Yes, that's because that's the first thing people do is they Google you, they go look at your website, and I always say, like, you can always improve it. Like mine is always a work in progress, and so it's like but getting it decent, I think, is a priority. With people that have very, like you mentioned, limited time, limited money or bandwidth for marketing activities, but want to start that, like maybe they have a good service, they have a good product in place. Is it AI? Is that a way to get started? How can they do bigger things with less?
Yeah. I think there are some business owners and some business teams that can kind of do it themselves, like the Manus thing, which I'm suggesting. Or there's lots of great tools out there for helping you create good social. Canva's a really nice, easy tool to create social. They got beautiful templates that will make your stuff look really good. You just have to put your information in. There's great AI services that'll help you think about what you should say on LinkedIn and what things you should, if you've got more of a information professional services type business that will do that research for you. I think you always want to have, the human in the loop. So I would never set it and forget it, because you don't know what's going to come out of AI. So there are some businesses that I think could just kind of do some things themselves. But the moment you start going, well, we need a print advertisement, and if you're going to get into digital paid at all, then at least get a consultant, or an agency. And they're different. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a difference here.
That's good, because it's my next question is how to hire somebody.
Yeah, so individual consultants tend to be focused on one or two things, right? They're good at X, Y, or Z. And so if you, as the business owner, are going to be the strategist, right, and you're going to think about the plan, and marketing really isn't that, it's not complicated. It just takes experience to know what works and what doesn't work. So if you know what you want, go out and get a consultant and have them do something for you. Hire a graphic designer on Upwork and get them to produce, a new logo for you, or a brochure, or whatever. And it's not going to cost you that much, and you're just buying, that piece. And so it's a very limited investment. I would be very cautious about hiring a consultant who says, "Oh, I'm going to do everything for you," because they're probably not good at everything, and that to me is a little bit of a red flag. Doesn't mean they're not out there, but it's hard to find them. Then from an agency perspective, really, in my mind, for the type of businesses that I think you and I would be working with, there's really going to be two kinds of agencies. One, there's going to be your, hey, we're an agency, we have a product, and you just call us and we just do it for you. I don't really subscribe to that method. Doesn't mean it doesn't work for some people, and some people do need an agency to do that, but they want to charge you a retainer, right? They want to go, oh, just pay me $4,000 a month, and then they're really busy for the first 4 months, and the next thing you know, your business is on autopilot with them, and you just keep paying them $4,000, but you don't know how to get out of it because you don't know what they were doing, and you don't know how to take that over, and you're worried that maybe what they're doing is working, and now you're stuck paying this $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month. be very cautious about getting into a retainer. And now I do retainers, but I do them for very specific purposes. And when clients have a set of things that, I need 5 posts a month, okay, great. I know how much that's going to be. You know how much that's going to be, and we're going to contract for that service. But the kind of agency I would recommend for most of the businesses that your listeners would be working on would be that agency that's going to give you fractional bits of people, and they're going to charge you hourly rates. And then you can demand that accountability. So, for example, I mentioned that company that we do the space equipment. I don't have I'm not going to staff them for a videographer and a photographer, but you know what? We're building that website and we need some new videos and we need some new photography. And so I'm going to charge them an hourly rate to do that work. And when it's done, it's done. And so they're not continuing to pay for that on an ongoing basis. Same thing with graphic design. They've got a conference coming up. They need a booth and they need materials. Great. I'm going to bring in my graphic designer. He's going to design those materials and then he's out. And they're not paying for that anymore. So try to find yourself an agency that's going to bill you in a very transparent way on an hourly basis. And then you know what you're getting. So that's my recommendation.
What's your advice for people who have listened to this and have realized, okay, I'm not there yet. I don't have the structure put in place, but I need to get people to know about my business. What are some easy steps that they can make this week? Maybe do something to get going in the right direction.
Yeah. So like you said, the website is the essential piece, and we've talked about how you can get started on that for real easy. If you're a small business, there's so many different people that can build you a website. If they're going to charge you more than $10,000, stop and think about that, because that's a big investment. And so I would say invest in your website, but don't overpay for your website. Maybe you've got one that you think is okay, but you need some enhancement. Well, go find yourself that agency that's going to enhance your website, not go, oh, we got to rebuild the whole thing for you and we got to move it onto our platform. That's one thing. Second thing is those Google listings. Man, that is the place to be. Everybody's Googling, and even AI relies upon the information that they see in Google, right? To a certain extent. So get your Google profile in really good place. A lot of times I see someone's got a business and Google will just pull up their address, and next thing you're looking at their house and you're going, I thought these people sold puzzles, but why is it this house? You want to get those reviews. Reviews are absolutely critical. Make sure your hours are correct. When are you open? Good contact information. And then the next most valuable thing that a lot of people are sitting on that they don't realize is email. So you're emailing your customers, and you don't need a fancy email solution. Please don't go out and invest in any of the email automation tools. There is a reason for doing that and at the right level of maturity. But if you're starting and you're wondering, what do I do next? You probably have a set of email addresses. Just go scrape those email addresses, start a little newsletter, and reach out to your customers that way. But there is one thing, and I wanted to make sure I said this, Lacey, to your audience, is that one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they move from tactic to tactic to tactic. So I said test and learn. So if a tactic isn't working, certainly cut it off. But if you're going to start something, if you're going to start that monthly newsletter, be prepared to follow it through, because the worst thing you're going to do is do 2 months worth of a monthly newsletter and then you go, that didn't work. You have to realize that, yes, there is some intrinsic value to just communicating with your customers. You got to be able to stick with it. And so, I think in the military, we're really good at that, right? We're going to set our minds to something, that is the mission, and we're going to do it. Don't make it a flash in the pan. This is why our military is what it is. It's based on repeatable processes that we teach incoming generation after generation how to execute those. Same way with your business. If you're going to implement something, implement it for the long term. Be prepared to pull the plug if it doesn't work, but make a commitment to it. So those are 3 places that I would recommend getting started.
Those are good ones. with the Google, what about people that have a virtual based business? That's a lot of military spouses, a lot of service members that are, are building a business that's PCS proof. How do they do a Google listing without an address?
Well, get yourself a like a post office box or something like that. Now, there's a little bit of trick to that whole thing. Google doesn't like certain. You have to make sure you check the right boxes in there. But AI is going to guide you through that process today if you're not sure, and the Google help will help you with that. But there's absolutely a way for you to create a physical, have an address, and then let your business be virtual and wherever it is. A lot of my businesses are virtual.
When do you know you need to hire help for marketing?
Oh man, such good questions.
Thank you.
So when you get to that point where you're like, I've got customers, this seems to be working, but people just don't know about me. Why isn't that more people aren't reaching out to me? That's when you know, because you've got a solid business, right? If you've got customers and you're making money, if you've got customers and you're not making money, you better fix that first, because more customers losing you money is going to create more problems, right? You don't need more customers losing more money. But once you've got a successful business that's working and a model that works, and you're going, how do I scale this? How do I let people know about who I am, what I do, and how I can help them? That's when you say, you know what, I do have money to invest in marketing. I'm going to the point about making a commitment, say I'm going to invest several $1,000s a month over time and see how that works. And then you test and learn your way to those things that work. I've never encountered a business in all of my years of marketing, which has been, getting close to 30 years, that some method of marketing, whether it's digital marketing or email or social media or website or conferences or your physical location, that didn't work. Marketing will always work if done in the right way.
What's your advice for people that have been DIYing marketing? That, because a lot of times you just don't want to invest the money, or you're scared you're going to hire somebody that's going to waste your money. What's your advice for things that could be working but could also be holding them back? Because also now with AI, it's like, why not just have AI do a marketing strategy, list out all your tactics and stuff like that, and save yourself some money and not deal with people?
Well, it's a fair question, because AI it has so many capabilities these days, and I have suggested a couple of ways that you can use AI to kind of do it yourself. But it's like, why don't you use AI for your relationship advice, right? You don't use it you don't just let it run wild and send emails to you can do that. Like, there are AI tools that will literally let you I'm going to have AI respond, but they don't know that person, they don't know that context, and so there's definitely a limit to how far you can go with AI, and people are pushing the boundaries, and we're going to see how that shakes out for them, but I'd be very careful about that. But if you say, I need a partner, I'm going to want to have a partner, find someone who's genuinely seems like they're interested in your business. And that to me is the highest compliment that I get from my customers. They go, you're just a part of the team, right? You want someone who's going to feel that way, and then you got to hold them accountable to that over time. And I myself have hired marketing consultants for very specific things, and I've had both good and bad experience. But it's always those people who really are in it with you, that and you can feel that, right? And then they're not shy about sharing the results. When you ask them, how is it going, they don't go, well, it seems to be pretty good. They have to have numbers, they have to have concrete proof, and you have to hold them accountable. So if you're DIYing it but it's become time for a partner, be prepared to invest time in that partner, and they should be prepared to invest time in you as well.
Love that. I have 30 more questions, but the last one I want to ask is there anything else that you would like people to know before we wrap it up about marketing? Because everybody listening, a lot of them have small businesses.
So, as I was saying earlier, marketing can work for everybody, but not all marketing works for everybody. So it's get yourself a strategy, get yourself a good partner, and test and learn. So I know it's more of a reflection on all the things I said, but that's the key. It's a strategy, it's investing the time, and test and learn. And when you'll see it. If you have the right data coming out, your business will thrive with the right marketing.
Okay, that's a good spot. I want to ask you a couple of quick random questions I ask everybody. First off, what is one resource or tool that you use that makes your life or your work easier?
Oh my gosh, so many tools, but my favorite tool, and I could not do what I do without it. I'm working 4 different businesses. It's called Motion. And a lot of people use Calendly or iCal or other types of systems, but Motion works so great for me because I can send you a link and I can say, hey, you schedule time with me. People like that, right? Because this whole thing going back and forth,
yes,
where you're like, when are you available? It's Tuesday from 3 to 4. And no, I'm not available at the time anymore. Motion brings in an unlimited amount of calendars, Apple calendars, my personal calendar. And so it keeps everything exactly aligned, and it makes it real easy for people to find time with me, even though I probably have 30 to 40 meetings every week. Motion, great tool.
Okay, what is your favorite book right now or your favorite book of all time?
Oh, yeah, I love asking this question because my favorite book, and I've read it probably 3 times now, is Never Split the Difference, How to Negotiate Like Your Life Depends on It by Chris Voss. And your audience is absolutely going to love this. Chris was a former FBI negotiator. He's got a tough, as nails mindset, but his the way he thinks about negotiation is so beautiful. It's win-win. This book, I'm going to make a bold claim. It'll change your life because it's so powerful in the way it helps people think about relationships and not about how you get something over on somebody. That is not what negotiating is about. And Chris unpacks all of that, and you can use this in your business life and in your personal life. It's absolute gold.
Love it. I will be sure to put a link to that in the show notes for everybody. I think I've heard of that book before, but I don't know. Does it have I have a negotiation book. Does it have gumballs on the cover?
No.
Okay, then that's not the one I have. Okay, I might have
red and yellow. It's actually on my bookshelf behind me. And then there's another book that I think would be good for your audience, and it's called Unscripted by MJ DeMarco, and it's just about really thinking differently. There's mixed. That book has a little bit of mixed review for me. But if you're trying to make that transition, if you're trying to break out, you're trying to, I want to do this. But how do I get started? It really helps you think through. It's just like plain straight talk. I really enjoyed that book.
Ooh, that's a good one. Definitely, I'll link that one as well. Now it is time for my favorite part of the podcast, which is game time. And in honor of your visit today, we're going to be playing Revenue Builder or Money Burner. So I am going to give you 5 scenarios, and you have to tell me if it can help people build revenue in their business or just it's a waste of money. And if you get 3 out of the 5 correct, you get bragging rights that you won game time on the MILMO Show, Aaron, which is a really big deal.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. Number 1, posting every day on social media without a clear offer. Is that a money burner or a revenue builder?
Burner.
Okay. Number 2, starting an email list before you have a big audience. Is that a revenue builder or a money burner?
Builder.
Okay. Asking happy customers for referrals. Is that a revenue builder or a money burner?
Big builder.
Okay. That can be hard for some people but you got to do it.
Yeah.
Number 3, hiring a marketing agency before you know your ideal customer. Is that a revenue builder or a money burner?
Oh, yeah, that's like a trick question. Because if you don't know the answer, then you do need someone to help you, but you should know the answer. So I'm going to go with burner because that's something that's really core to your business.
Yes, might want to think that through before you're paying by the hour for other people to help you think that through. Yes. Okay, number 5, running paid ads to a website that doesn't clearly explain what you sell. Is that a revenue builder or money burner?
Man, that is a big pile of burning money right there. I've seen
Yes.
more money go up in flames that way. So
Well, you definitely have bragging rights that you won Game Time on the MILMO Show. I really appreciate you playing the game and being on the show. Can you tell everybody listening where they can learn more about you and your work?
terrific. Thank you, Lacey. It's been a pleasure to be on the show. And if you want to talk about marketing, you can come to my site. It's ignitestudio.co. That's for local businesses. And then my other agency is VoluteGroup.com, and that's more for enterprise agencies. So wherever your business is, I've got a team that can probably help you.
Wonderful. I will definitely link to those in the show notes for everybody. Thank you again, Aaron. I appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Good luck, everybody.